Hello, it's Brent Barnhart. Let me go over some settings here on the feeder, see if I can help you guys get up and running well. All right, now there are several ways to set the rubber feet. You can put the rubber feet over top of the rubber belts, or you can put the rubber feet between the rubber belts. For this product here, I would put them between the rubber belts, not on top, okay? So let's start off with that. So you just center the feet, and then the belts, as you can see, run on the rubber. The shaft in the back has got some rubber O-rings, which keeps the belt running in place. I'm trying to think of some reasons why, you know, he was telling me you got one machine that's running good, one machine that's not running as well. You got to remember that first off, you're running paper, okay? No matter what machine in the industry, when you work with paper, paper has a mind of its own. So you can't necessarily say from one day to the next, it's always set on this and it'll always have that setting. Or this one is set exactly that way and we have this one set that way, but it doesn't run quite the same. Well, it doesn't really work that way with paper. It takes the smallest of differences, the smallest, and they're not going to run correctly. I mean, it could be something that you're not even seeing because you don't work with paper. So when we build a machine that feeds paper, of course we don't make something that ever misfeeds expectedly. Meaning, if you're counting in batches of 100, there should be no reason where it miscounts one time ever out of every 20. Nobody would ever buy the machine. However, on a rare occasion, is it possible for the machine to miscount? Sure, it's possible for it to miscount. Two sheets could be stuck together, static electricity. There's lots of reasons why it could. But obviously, the machines are made in such a way where it should not be anticipated when they're set up correctly. The white belts and the green belt. The green belt runs twice as fast or half again as fast as the white belt. So as it feeds out off the white belts and it gets onto this section, this is running twice as fast, which pulls it out of the machine quicker, and the ones behind it are going slower. There has to be a gap in between each sheet. You have your stop eye right here. It's facing up. It has to see a break between the sheets. If it doesn't see the break, you're going to get 2, 3. If there's no break, it'll just keep on feeding and never shut off. So there has to be a break between each sheet. If you're getting doubles, of course, you can lower the feet down. But it reaches a point where, you know, it can't be lowered down anymore, or you're still getting doubles. But that's where the tail support comes in, and we'll cover that here in the next part of the video. The main thing I'm looking at is this bottom plate here is adjustable. You can raise it up, lower it down, make sure that it's pressed up against the green belt and supporting the green belt good. And then the wheels, these are adjustable up and down as well, and you can cock them a little bit. No reason to cock them, but you got to make sure that the paper is underneath each one of these wheels. These are all spring loaded. So you want to feel it, put a piece of paper in there, and make sure that it's getting pinched by all 4 wheels, not just the ones here and the ones here. If these are not grabbing the paper good, that'll cause you to get doubles because it's not pulling it out fast enough. So you got to make sure you have good contact. It doesn't need to be a lot. It's just paper. It don't take much. But I was setting this up, and I noticed that I had good contact with this one, good contact with this one, and I did not have good contact with these. So I just lowered it down just a hair more. Now it's grabbing it really good. So what we're going to do is whenever the signal comes to feed a sheet, of course the sheet comes forward, sees the stop eye and stops. Then your signal says feed it, and it drops that in the tray. Then the next one advances and it waits for your signal. Drops it in the tray. We're going to show that in a minute. So make sure these wheels, all 4 of them, have a good hold of that sheet as it's coming down. If you go too low, then the frame of this is going to touch the green belt and it isn't going to run at all. You'll see that when you play around with it, because as you push it down more, you can push it down where the wheels keep going up and then the metal frame touches the bottom. We're going to cover this tail piece here in a minute. The tail wedge in the back, for a lot of products, as long as you're half close, it doesn't matter. With yours, you got to be a little bit more accurate. The farther the wedge is in, you've got several adjustments on that. Let's just cover that separate here in a minute. Make sure these are tight, just finger tight. That way, when the paper feeds under here, this whole carriage doesn't raise up a little bit. And we're talking about the height of a piece of paper. Because if it does, that could be enough to give you a double. So just make sure they're snugged up. All right, and then when you go to set it up, right now I'm going to get a count on this, and I'll put this in the video. But you're not going to want to put more than maybe, I don't know. I've got more than this in there right now. I've got about this many in there. That's going to be 200 or 300. From what I remember, the speed that you guys are running, I'm going to be running at 3 a second here in a minute. I think you guys are running slower than that, but I can't remember. Well, I mean, 1 every second is 3,600 an hour. So 1 every 1.5 seconds is 1,800. So 1 every, you're not going to be able to load this thing all the way up and then expect this thing to run all shift long or something without nobody touching it. Can it be done? Sure, it could be done, but you're going to cause yourself headaches. It's just easier that, if somebody's walking by it, just grab a small little stack and add it to it. Just top it off if someone's walking by. Now, I just reached in the box and I pulled out this stack here. As you can see, it goes like that. It'll feed it, but when you mix it in with all the ones that don't go like that, these could cause a problem. If you ran these curls down like this, they're going to feed better. I don't know if it matters if they're up or down when it goes in your tray. I know that might sound crazy. Like, why do you want it upside down? I mean, I don't know what they're, as long as it's in there and it's the directions, maybe for, 200 out of every 2,000 with the curls, it doesn't matter as long as it's getting in the box. You could save these ones with the down curl and load those feeder up and feed these in separately, so the curl's on the downside instead of on the upside. Or you can just take and give it a little bit of a bend to help yourself out. One other thing I'm going to mention is inside these boxes, the printer is turning them like maybe 100 or 200. And there's no marker in there. You can't tell where he's turned them. Now, I've been in the paper, I own one of the largest printing companies in Ohio. My family did for over 100 years. Whenever we have to rehandle paper, once it's gone through a machine, like off the folder, and we have to rehandle it, we always put a slip sheet in there. Because even though we handle paper every day, when we're going back through another machine, we don't have time to try to find where the guy on the folder turned this. Sure, it's not difficult to find it, but it takes time. And if you miss it by one sheet, it's going to jam up the next machine if the folded edge has to go in first. And then you just shut that whole line down. So what we take is like scrap paper, like a piece of yellow offset, blue offset, something that's left over from another job, some chipboard maybe. Chipboard would be great. If you have them cut a sheet of chipboard, and you could always give them the chipboard back when they come pick up the drop off the next one. You give them a box of chipboard back. Then it's real simple to find where he turned it in the box, and it'll help them lay flatter in the box, so you don't get that curl like that. That's another advantage of having the chipboard in there. I didn't say it would eliminate it, but it would only help it. Now this handful I just pulled out, they look pretty good. This right here, just this little bit right here doesn't. Why is that? Well, as they go up in the box sometimes and how they get seated in there when they're getting shipped, sometimes, you know, you'll get some of the bend in it. So I would advise you set those aside and worry about those later and put the ones in that are relatively flat to avoid any problem that might be caused by those. Here's another batch I just pulled out. You know, those are good and nice and flat. And they only got curled by being in the box. That's all. And your printer's done a nice job, so it's not a criticism on him. It's just that there's no slip sheet, and a slip sheet would be nice. All right, so I have a timer set up. It's going to feed every 3 seconds. You can see there's no break, but it speeds up, and then you get a break. But before, I'm going to lower the feet down. Now you can see a break. The break may not always be the same. You might have a big break, a small break, or almost no break. However, as long as those wheels are in contact, it should pull it out, and you should still just get one. I'll stop it for just a minute. Sometimes when I want to see how far my rubber feet are down, I just take my finger and I run it across here, and then you can feel the bend in the paper. And then you can compare this one to this one. You really only need one rubber foot, but the reason we always use two is you can straighten the paper out. The paper's coming out crooked. If it comes out of the hopper crooked, it'll come out the end of the machine crooked. So that we use these to straighten it out, so when it comes nice and straight. So I always use two. But make sure these rubber wheels are down all the way. You might need to send me a picture of your machine. Once you watch the video, then I can call in. We can do a phone session using FaceTime or something. I noticed on this machine I added some spacers right here so that the wheels could go down just a hair lower than what they were allowed to go down. So I don't know. There are some slight variances on the machine, so I'm not sure if I saw yours, if yours might need a couple washers there or something. But if you shove these wheels down all the way, and it's still not tight underneath this bearing right here, then you might need to add a washer between the top of this and the bottom of this so that it pushes it down just a hair. And yours may already have, I'm not positive on that. I'll move the camera to the back so we can talk about that wedge. All right, the wedge, you have several motions here. You can slide the whole thing in and out. You can obviously angle it by lifting it up or down. And then you have this top plate right here that you can loosen, and it'll slide in and out so it can reach out or you can pull it back. Right now I have it all the way back, by the way, until it touches the plastic. I have it all the way back. I have the gold screw in the second hole from the back, okay? And I don't know that the angle really matters that much. But I can get you a measurement on it real quick. I mean, if we just go from the bottom here to the top of it, I'm at like 5 inches. 5 inches from here to here. And I'm looking down here, and you can see the belt in the paper. The more belt that touches the paper, the more friction there is, the more it wants to pull to. If it's not pulling at all, this could be in way too far. Like if you push this in way far like that, then maybe you're having misses because it's running but none are feeding, that's because there's not enough belt pressure. But I'm going to go ahead and shove that in real far like that, and I'm going to try it here in a minute. I'm not going to move the camera, but let me try that for a second. I like that so far. A lot. All right, I'm going to move the camera. Let's get a measurement on that, see where we're at. This is the hardest piece for me to tell somebody how to set. I'm in the second hole, but based on where it's at, I should probably be in the third hole. You may have, a lot of times I put 2 screws in there. The thumb screw plus another one just to keep it straight, but you don't really need the other one. I don't have one in this one. But without the other one, it can get twisted if you messed with it. All right, so from the back of this plate right here, not the back of the feeder, but the back of the feed plate, 1 1/4 inch to there. And I'm still at 5 inches from here to here. And then this plate is all the way back. That's how I have this set at the moment. Now I want to move the camera so you can see how it's feeding differently now. All right, see the gap? Previously, we were not getting doubles, but I was saying sometimes you have a gap, sometimes you don't, you know, and it'll pull head. But it's good. It's good that you have a good gap and they don't run close, and then at the last minute, there we don't. But we're fine. Remember, it's paper. It's a little hard to, how it gets underneath the rubber feet, how it works its way through. All that's going to affect how it pulls and this distance. But because these belts are running twice as fast, it's going to correct for all that imperfection so that you only get one. I don't think anywhere in this video I've gotten a double. I'm going to guess in your case that on a rare occasion, if 2 flew in the tray, it probably doesn't matter. I know you don't want that, but you know, the customer got, I don't really look at these that close. Instruction sheet, how to assemble it, you know, how to put the gang box together. So, you know, it didn't hurt that they got 2, but no, of course you don't want to waste your literature and get a bunch of doubles. Those are a little overlapped, but you got 1. There is no difference between the machines that you have and this one. They're identical. You could look at the pulleys. There's two pulleys right here. Make sure those are the same size. I mean, I don't know. We do change those on occasion for certain jobs. And you had one of your machines that I had to send a new gear to because we did mess up. But they should be the same. Make sure both machines are the same. If they're not the same, that doesn't mean that they have to be, without me getting into explanations on that. Because if this is running twice as fast or 1.5 times as fast, a lot of times we only run it 30 times as fast, and it's fine. This product feeds really easy. But if you want to check that, at least I'll know that information to make sure that you have identical pulleys on them. And I could send you maybe a smaller one for the second one to speed this up even more, which will help with maybe help with some imperfections. And then you might say, well, why wouldn't you include that in all of them? Well, like I said, every sheet of paper feeds differently. So, you know, some people are counting cardstock. Some people are, these feeders will feed over 40,000 sheets an hour. When you get your credit card in the mail and it's glued onto a sheet of paper, these are used. Okay, you can see right here, we had an up curl. We got to a small stack at the bottom that had an up curl, and they're gonna keep coming out that way. So let's talk about loading the feeder real quick. And let me see if there was anything I can do to have eliminated that. A lot of times when something like that happens, and you grab it and throw it out of the way and you keep on going, you're fine. But in that case, it was not going to clear itself. You don't want to run the feeder out. Let me adjust the camera here so. You don't want to run the feeder out because there's no reason to run it out. You're always going to have to, you know, once it's loaded, you always want to keep it loaded. When you put the first batch in, I'm getting ready to load it. If you can do it, great. If you can't do it, then just put them in there. You grab and squeeze. And while you're squeezing, roll your hand backwards, then let go. Grab and squeeze, and then roll backwards, then let go. Grab and squeeze and roll backwards, and then you can see how it fans them out. Get a little bit of an arrow like that in there for the first ones to help get it wedge shaped as it's going in. And on the back, you have an inch button. I'm sure you know that. The top button, if you push and hold it, it'll just run. That's good for... That's basically for setup. When you go to set the machine up, you can push the button and get them going through and make sure they look good. And even putting your finger on the button, you can see that you have separation. You've got the rubber feet that have a little swale on them, and then you got the bottom of these uprights that have a half round on it. Once you're above the half round, you don't need to, you can just pick these up and put them in. But remember, your biggest enemy is going to be that up curl. What just happened there, when it got to the rubber foot, it went to go forward, the friction on the rubber foot and the belt, pulled it back and it went like that. Now, even if this was a vacuum feeder, it's the same thing. Vacuum feeders, printing presses. I've run everything in the industry, from Heidelberg presses to Komori presses to MBO folders, going back to when I was 6 years old. I'm a consultant on some of the largest presses in the world, web presses and that. I travel all over the world and advise on paper issues and what have you. All of them don't like up curl, but we have to deal with it. It's just the nature of the beast. So we have attachments and things that, you know, and it's just a fight some days. And I know you're not going to have that type of trouble with this, but I'm telling you things you got to look out for. One thing, I got to make sure you get it set up so you're not getting doubles. That's easy. That's the easy part, okay? Out of everything going on here, we'll get you straightened out so that you're not getting doubles and misses. The last thing really that's my biggest concern is what just happened is sometimes when we run into a batch of the up curls, and if you do that, you know, you can bend them down like this, but you can't take a big stack of them. When you do that, you can't take a stack like this and do them all at once. It doesn't work that way because you're really bending the bottom ones. You're doing nothing to the middle ones. You have to you can go quickly, but you got to grab small amount, bend them down. And I don't see anything in these boxes where you have to do much of that. However, out of every 3 or 4 feeder loads, you might have a couple, about that many, that has an up curl. That's why I'm saying if you can look at those and sit those aside and run those through upside down, that would be good. Now, none of them have a down curl. None of them. I didn't really try running all of them upside down. If it doesn't matter, you could look at that. I don't know exactly what you're doing if it has to be upright, but if you ran them all upside down, then you might not ever need to bend any of them. But consistency is also good too, so you don't have, and let me get it loaded up and run some more here. I ran this a small amount before the video. I've ran this, I've made videos like this already that I haven't sent, like 2 or 3 other ones. I've never posted them. And I didn't have any jam trouble like that, but I don't edit those out of my videos because it's a learning experience. I let my customers see the jam and understand why it happened and how to fix it. Like I said, that's the first I've seen it happen, but it was because it was a slight up curl. And there are a couple of methods to help with that too. One method to help what crunched up a minute ago, where it caught the top of it and pulled the bottom, and it did that. Let me grab another rubber foot for a demo. What I have seen people do is on the rubber feet. Now, this has got friction too because it's rubber. So you got the bottom belts that's pulling it, and then you have this top rubber that's keeping the top ones back. So you only get one. So that's you got the rubber belt pulling it, and then you got the top one holding it back. What I've seen people do is take scotch tape and put scotch tape. It should be touching the belt right here. You don't want to put scotch tape where it's touching the belt. But they put scotch tape like right here, up and over. And that makes this really slippery. That way when the up curl hits it, it just slides underneath it. It doesn't get caught because of the friction and do that. To be honest with you, I have never done that. But then again, I've ran these in production, but I've not ran my own machine in production. I ran every one of these on the market through the 90s. Of course, I'm going to say mine is far better than any of those. I know that sounds convenient, but based on all the ones I've ran, I don't think, there's some other good ones out there, but I don't think anybody comes close to beating how easy this is to run. I used to have more advanced features on here, but the problem is the more tricky and more advanced I get, the more difficult it becomes to run. So after I only add some of those features if somebody absolutely needs them. That way it keeps the confusion down to nothing. And you guys are only doing one thing, so you don't need a bunch of advanced features. But if you have the crunch up problem again, don't worry about the scotch tape right now. That's only if that crunch up happens that we just did. That's when that might help. So right now, I'm going to count, see how, when I get off the camera here in a minute, I'm going to count these before I post this video. So I know how many we're putting in here. And then I'll go back in the emails and see if I got a count off of Asieta as to how many they're doing an hour. For some reason, I'm thinking it's like 6 a minute or 6 every 6 seconds. It was really slow. It might not be that fast. But my point is, I've got people that are running cards at 40,000 an hour. At 40,000 an hour, this is card stock right here in the food industry. I mean, that right there, that's only like 200 sheets of paper. At 40,000 an hour, they'll go through this many cards like that. I mean, it's going so fast, your eye can't even see them running. So my point is, you're not going to run out that fast. I know you would rather not have to touch it or mess with it, maybe for an entire shift. But I don't know what a shift would be based on the speed, so I'll have to figure that out. But if somebody has to walk by it like once every 3 hours, and the feeder hasn't run out, they don't have to, anybody can do it. Just grab a small stack and add it. And then when you find, I'm suggesting probably a stack about like this. Let's go ahead and put more in so we have a feel, because we'll see it changing as we put more in. That way I have an idea. Because the problem is, if we set it up to run really good with a lot, when it goes all the way down to the bottom and we have no weight at all, it changes how it's going to feed. Sometimes, not always. Depends on how you have it set up. Now that's quite a few. I'm going to say that's over 500. That's about 500 of them right now. So let's go ahead and see how it runs with 500 in it. And remember, I moved the wedge forward so we have less belt friction. Now there's more weight. So let's see how it does. Looks nice so far. I'm going to go ahead and count while we let that run. $50 of them are like 1/4 of an inch, maybe. No, sorry, 1/2 of an inch. About 1/2 an inch. 50 is about 1/2 an inch. So we have there's 3.5 inches in the feeder. So 350 in there. We've already fed 50, so we had 400 in there to start with. I think I guessed 500. Now I wasn't looking. I don't think we fed any doubles. There's a double there. Might be, now we're going to get a bunch of doubles here. Maybe. Got 2 there. I'm looking at how the paper is falling down and shingling, getting underneath here. When it's nice and shingled like that, that's good. You can see our shingled ones are running out, and these ones behind it have got to advance forward. And how those advance forward will depend on how good we get. No doubles or, okay, now it's starting to, see it's snagging right here. Starting to snag right there. I pushed it down with my finger, but obviously you guys aren't going to be sitting there watching that. That's where a piece of Scotch tape could help. Okay, now the ones in the back drop down. They should start to work their way forward here and hopefully shingle out nicely. You can see this next clump here is getting ready to advance forward after this next one. See how the pile dropped and moved forward? Sometimes when that happens, there's a whole bunch here that are getting ready to work their way through. Let's see if we get a double. I think we got 2 there. We got 2 there. Now it's separated out again. Now I'm going to lift some of the weight off here so we don't have so many in there. And I'm going to pull the tail wedge back. Now, there is a little bit different type of feeder that can go on these. Now you can see that the next ones haven't advanced forward yet. How they advance forward will kind of depend on if we hit a double or not. Let's watch. I think we should be fine though, because we don't have so much weight on the stack back there. The less weight on the stack, the less chances of that happening. I forget, you guys have a robot. Do you have a robot that's grabbing these? I don't remember that. Now I'm thinking that you might have a robot that pulls these off here and places them. Let me know on that. We've talked about a number of different things. I'm going to go ahead and pause it. You can see it's lifting up right there again. Let's just let it go so we can see. See, because you're not going to be watching it. See what's getting ready to happen? When it lifts up like that, from an up curl, you see, I thought, the stack I put in looked pretty good. And they were pretty flat. That's where the Scotch tape might help a little bit there. Or I could make up a different rubber stopper maybe. have to think about that. Okay, I want to talk about something else we could do. Let me move the camera here. Give you guys like every option that. All right, that should be good. All right, so there is another option here, and let me try to explain how that works. Now, when people need a feeder or a paper feeder of some sort, I make all kinds of feeders, but you want the simplest possible one that you don't have to have someone trained to know how to run. I know these have been giving you a headache, but I think a little bit of education like with this video would help correct some of that. But when you start getting into vacuum and all that, you're not making things easier. When you're getting into pile feeds and vacuums and you got to turn and load them, when they run out, you got to load it again. That's the nice part about these is they're so simple to run in general. Now there's another version of this one, and basically it goes like this. These here kind of, picture these right here stopping about this high. They're only about this high. There is no tail wedge. And then there's a vertical conveyor like this, okay? We lay these on the conveyor like this. And then we keep loading the conveyor. And then as these advance, they're not in a pile, okay? All you have are just these front ones here. You don't have the tail support. But the conveyor has an eye, and it slowly feeds these in. And instead of having a stack, you have a fanned out row of them, which I would say a conveyor that adds about this much length to it. I'll have to fan some out and get a count on how many that would be. You're going to be at least probably get up to 1,000. Depends how we fan it. But then that eliminates some problems that we have with the pile feed when it comes to feeding something with a curl. Most of the time, somebody is in the general vicinity of one of these when it's running. Doesn't mean someone standing there just running this, no. But there's somebody standing here doing something else, whatever. I'm not sure that's the case with you guys. I'm not exactly sure how this whole line's working because I know it's not anything to do with the paper industry. It's you're putting together all these components, automating these components and putting them in the tray and whatever, and everything's getting automatically packaged and ready to go. And this is just putting a piece of paper in. So is there anybody near these? I don't know. How often does somebody walk by? I don't know that. What are the minimums for how many can be in it, based on the speed? I mean, can somebody, every, half hour or something, just add a small stack to it as they're walking by? As long as it hasn't ran out, just dropping them in is not a problem. This way, I could figure out how many we could get on that, and then that would be like an attachment, and then there'd be a photo eye that as this needed more, it would slowly advance them forward. But basically, think of it this way, you never have a stack of more than something like this or a little higher as it goes back. So you don't have the you don't even have the curl problem, because even if there is a curl, that's going to work its way underneath there, no problem. Now, as far as the thing getting caught on the foot and rolling up, we can solve that. So there's no reason to go to this here because of that, okay? we'll come up with, we'll change the rubber foot. We'll put the piece of Scotch tape on it. We're at 40 minutes now. I have it all set up. I got some other things I got to do and videos I got to make. But I'll leave it set up. And I can make another video and run it with Scotch tape. I could also make another video where I maybe change the front foot a little bit, if that helps. But I need to hear a little bit more from you guys as to exactly what the problem is. Last I heard, one was running good, one's not. Well, they're identical, so it doesn't make any sense to send it back, because all it's demonstrating is whether I can run it. I need to get you guys to, get it set up, and it should run fairly smooth. But let me know if the curl's causing you a problem. I need to know that. I'm sure it probably has, because it's happened to me a few times, so certainly that's happened to you. We never had a miss. So I'm not sure if you're getting misses. I'm not quite sure about that. That would be related to the tail being too far in and holding up and not enough pull. I'm not exactly positive that I had the wedge set exactly right. You might say, well, I don't know, you make the thing. I mean, why not? Well, you have to run it and watch it and observe it, and sometimes you got to make some adjustments to it. And I could spend more time, and I'm willing to do it, and play around with that to try to get what I think is maybe the best position for that. But we should settle on how many is reasonable in the pile here. What can you live with as far as loading it? What's doable? Because if you tell me that it has to hold this many, well, then that's going to base on how I'm going to set that up there. If you say, hey, we can live with 400, 450, 500, that's fine. Then I'll base my setup on the rubber, on the wedge there. But I think the wedge settings we did in the video, though, I should get you darn close. And the up curl is going to be one of the only issues that I can think of that we just have to work around. We might even could use a piece of spring steel that comes down in from the front here, because we have this 1 inch space here, because the pieces are here. Let me show you a little trick here. By the way, anybody in the printing industry, tape and banding material are on every machine in the world when you go work on them, because pressmen, die cut guys, all of us are adding banding, plastic banding, metal banding, tape, you name it, to get. One thing you could do, let me find what I'm looking for here. Okay, couple examples. This is just a piece of slippery cardstock, okay? Let me put some in the feeder. All right, so we got some in the feeder. Can't see what the camera angle is. Okay, we got some in the feeder. And obviously we have this 1 inch space here between this bar and the sheet. I put my hand down here even while you're running it. And what we could do, this slip of cardstock, and believe it or not, an idea like this, we do it one time and run it that way for days at end, if it works, and not even change it over. So once I figured out the height of it, we bent that over. We'd run electrical tape doesn't leave a residue. So you could run a piece of electrical tape across here, tape this on. That way, when you go to take this off, there's no tape residue. And then all this is doing is when the up curl hits that, it helps smooth it down. Let me. So you can see how that there is blocking the rubber, and the gloss paper is helping glide that sheet under, okay? So there's one idea, and that's an excellent idea. This kind of the same idea as putting scotch tape on there. So if you want to go easy, you could try that first. Just put a piece of scotch tape on the bottom of that foot, then come around the top there, and that'll make it slippery. Or this idea would work. I mean, you could get fancy with metal banding material, but I mean, I've got some, this is really light, but I think the paper idea would be better. That would eliminate probably all of the occasional crunch ups. Because that's what's happening. And that is not unusual for this type of stock to do that. Like I said, it doesn't happen often, but obviously you guys don't want to crunch up, you know, every, 50 trays or whatever. Well, it wouldn't be that much. We ran, probably 300 or 400 of these before we ran into one, or 200 or 300, but still, if it's predictable, like I said to begin with, we don't want anything that's predictable. And we know that if we have an up curl, it might snag on that, so that's predictable in the sense where let's do something to try to eliminate it. At first I said, don't worry about it, it happened once, but then it happened again, and the more I watched it, I think it's likely for that to happen. So we probably need to put something in the front there to smooth that out. All right, let me get this sent, posted so you have it in the morning.